Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into SEC Nightly, the nightly show dedicated to the top news and notes from the nation's top conference. I'm your humble host, Brooks Austin, and on tonight's show, we will be talking about some of the biggest games coming up in the conference in the year of 2020. We'll preview those, very, very early preview of those, obviously. Some potential quarterback battles, some potential quarterback competitions that might be surfacing around the conference, most notably Tuscaloosa. And is there one brewing in Athens? Teaser alert. I'll tell you a little bit later why or why not I believe that there is or is not a quarterback controversy on the rise there in Athens. And, of course, we'll talk about Scott Linehan being brought on there in Baton Rouge to replace Joe Brady. Man, I don't know how you guys feel about that new intro music, but I am a fan of it. Again, SEC Nightly, if you haven't figured it out by now, is the nightly show here on, all your Facebook streams, Twitter streams as well, and my YouTube page over there at YouTube. If you haven't checked that out, go check that out. We'll be doing a film breakdown tonight of Kendall Milton and who I think his NFL player comparison is. Spoiler alert in the NFL. But anyways, let's get into the show. Before we get into it, I got to take care of a little business. However you found us, show us a little bit of support. If you're on Facebook, hit us up with that thumbs up. If you're on Twitter, just tap that screen, get us up those Periscope ratings just a little bit. And on podcast, man, support us, subscribe, give us 5 stars, all that good stuff. I'll stop begging for your support and get right into the show. I'm a one-man band here tonight. We won't have any guests, so we'll just go through the topics however long it takes us. We'll do it, and then we'll get out of here, okay? Be a fun Tuesday night show for you. Some interesting, storylines across the league. But we'll start no other than Scott Linehan being brought on to replace Joe Brady. This is a guy who took last season off after having spent 18 straight seasons in the NFL, mostly as an offensive coordinator. Had a brief stint as an NFL head coach there in St. Louis for the Rams. Unfortunately, I think had a record of 11-25 as a head football coach. There, his only head gig, and now he is on his way to LSU to replace Joe Brady. Last college gig back in 2001 with Louisville. So needless to say, his recruiting pitch might need a little bit of updating, right? It's a guy who hasn't spent very much time in living rooms over the last years. So he'll have to, I'm sure Ed Orgeron will, give him the full verse and the full rundown on how to get someone to make you a gumbo or a shrimp po' boy or whatever it is that the Bayou Bengal is down there eating and munching on. So I'm sure he'll give him the rundown. Ed Orgeron, one of the better recruiters, one of a high energy guy. I don't know if Scott Linehan at 56 years old. I don't exactly know if he's ready to go into those high school environments and high school, watch hoops games, right? I don't know if he wants to go spend time watching hoops, potential future LSU Tigers. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I don't know if that's what he's there for. He's there to be an offensive analyst. He's there to be, the NFL passing game guru, there to just keep things open. Steve Ensminger still on staff there and still the offensive coordinator for the most part. So I don't know how much of a role that, I don't know how much of a role Joe Brady played last year. We know he was highly credited, right? Everyone wanted to throw him some praise and give him all the props in the world, and they had a great year, right? Quite literally historic there in the SEC. But how much of it was Ensminger? How much of the plays was he calling? Was Joe Brady just there as the design specialist, making the plays and whatnot, and Ensminger the one calling them? Those are the things we don't know headed into this next year. And if it was a plays thing, obviously you got to sit there and say that they've lost something, right? That LSU is going to get a little bit worse. And you have to assume that because Joe Brady, I would assume, is a little bit better. I could be wrong with this, but you guys in the comments, tell me if you believe I'm wrong or if you hold this same sentiment about recruiting. I think some of the younger coaches recruit better. They're the best ones out there doing it. I think recruiting's a lot about energy. I think recruiting's a lot about machismo and how much, it's likability, right? How much can you go into a room and make that mom or dad or, mom and dad think that you're the one that's going to take care of their son over the next couple of years. I think that's the most important thing, right? Energy and likability. If you don't have both of those things, you're not going to be a very good high school or college recruiter. So Whether or not Linehan's going to have that, I don't know. Whether or not they're going to place him into a role, to go out and try to, I highly doubt they put him on their top targets, right? They're not going to send Linehan out there to seal the deal with Caleb Williams, though he may be in communication with him every once in a while to kind of give him the mindset of what they're going to be running. I don't think he's the one getting on the G5 flying out there to go see him. I think that's still going to be Steve Ensminger and still going to be Ed Orgeron going to seal deals. Linehan going to be more of a behind-the-scenes guy, I would imagine, right? Again, this is a guy who spent the last 18 years, 2019 season took it off. I don't know what he was doing, playing golf, probably cutting his lawn and doing all the chores around the house that Mrs. Linehan probably left on a list. I don't know what he was doing last year, but I can probably guarantee you a guy that spent this much time in professional football, not really here for the ins and out of college football, but still wants to be around the game and teach the X's and O's and, put his stamp on the game of football. And I think he's got a good opportunity to do that down there at LSU. Again, we don't know how much of a role Joe Brady played outside of just being the designer, right? The artist of the painting, and who called the plays, who dialed them up, who called them when. We don't know that. Maybe it was a team effort. Maybe it was live discussion for the full 35-second play clock or whatever, 30-second play clock, whatever it is. Maybe it was a full discussion up there in the booth between Joe Brady and Ensminger because they were sitting right next to each other. But one of those discussion valves, one of those brilliant minds, obviously now gone to the NFL, and he took a handful of assistants with him. So I think there is reasonable expectations to be a down tick there at LSU in terms of performance, but how could you not, right? You lose the Heisman Trophy quarterback. You lose one of your best receivers in Justin Jefferson, both to the draft. You lose your starting tailback there in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You lose a couple of interior offensive linemen, one to graduation, and I believe one to an early enrollee, and all that stuff going on over there on the defense. So you're on offense. You're going to have to score a little bit more points because the defense is going to be giving up more. There's a lot more pressure on that LSU offense than there was a year ago. Even though they were into a new system, now they go right into a new identity, if you will, with Joe Brady being gone. So whether or not we'll just have to see, right? And I know that's not the hot take. If you're going to be on radio, or if you're going to be the guy giving the take's not, hey, we got to wait and see. That's not a good take. What I'll tell you is I don't really think going out and hiring older coaches a successful path for teams that need help in recruiting, okay, or still need help in recruiting. Now, I know what some of my listeners are going to be saying, or my viewers are going to be thinking. Well, didn't Georgia just hire an older guy? Well, yeah, an older guy, yeah, right? He's just 2 years the junior of Scott Linehan. Linehan 56, Todd Monken 54. But from all indications, and maybe Linehan can do this, all indications are that Todd Monken has not been a detriment on the trail. He's been a beneficiary on the recruiting trail. If that kind of thing can happen with Scott Linehan, then absolutely, by all means, 100%. You just got a former NFL head coach, whether in 25, the guy is a former NFL head coach. You got him there in your building, in your offices, helping your offense. I don't think that is ever going to be a bad thing, right? But he's gonna have to, at least show that he can go out and do some type of involvement in the recruiting trail. If it is only being on the phone and talking to recruits and explaining what the identity of the offense is there at LSU. If that is the bare minimum, the baseline of what Linehan's going to bring to the table in terms of recruiting, I think it's a great hire, right? Again, you bring an NFL mind into your building, and one that's, you can argue about his successes, right? He was there in Dallas most recently as their offensive coordinator and passing game coordinator, spent a little time in Washington, D.C., bounced all around the league. And I've never really heard, we've heard of the Scott Linehan name, but never have I ever sat down and gone, wow, who's a top available name in the NFL coaching ranks as an offense? That's Scott Linehan. And if that's not it, if the NFL coaching hires over the last 5 years haven't taught you anything, if you got a cup of coffee as a successful offensive coordinator in the NFL, if you go 2 years, 2-3 years with a successful offense, a top scoring offense, by God, people are busting down your doors to hire you as a head coach. That is the trajectory and the history, most recent history of the NFL. So if that hadn't happened to Scott Linehan since his time there in St. Louis, and maybe it's because he fell on his face in 3 years there at LSU or St. Louis, but who wouldn't? I don't think the Rams were winning very many games outside of the greatest show on turf there, in St. Louis, and back to kind of a downtick there in LA right now. But this isn't an NFL podcast or TV show. This is an SEC related show. And either way, again, bottom line, you got an NFL mind. You got a guy who's got almost 2 decades of NFL experience. So at the very, very least, you got that. And you got a brilliant mind, right? You don't hang around that long in the league without being a brilliant mind. But again, he wasn't the top of the top in the NFL ever. Since his head coaching decline, he got nothing but offensive coordinator jobs the remainder of the way, and nobody sought him out for future employment at the head coaching position. So whether it's and here's the deal, and I don't know if this was the case with Linehan bouncing around the NFL, but I know from my experience as a football player, my college coaches, my coaches that coached me, guess who was on their staff? Their buddies. Their buddies were always on their staff. This guy I coached with 2 years back at this other program. This guy I coached with 10 years back at this other program. Thought he was really good with the defensive line. This guy I brought in, I met him 5 years ago at a camp, thought he had great energy. We had a beer. He's a good dude. Brought him on. Okay, that's how coaching staffs work. And, it's a football mentality, and it's even, some nepotism going on in the NFL world. Look at the Turner boys over there in Carolina. Now, Norv Turner did some good things there in the last couple of years. I don't know if he's still there because I'm not an NFL specialist, but that's kind of how it works in the coaching ranks. I don't know if that's what was happening with Ensminger, if that's how he remained in the NFL. And if it is, more power to him. He's a very, very rich man. He's probably got generational wealth, spending almost 20 years in the NFL. More power to him. But again, he wasn't one of the elites. He wasn't one of the guys that was getting picked off of a coaching staff to go be an NFL head coach. And again, if the history of the NFL does not teach you anything, it's that if you have a brief cup of coffee of success in the NFL at an offense coordinator ranking, you're going to get a head coaching opportunity. More than one, most likely. Shout out Hugh Jackson. Anyways, let's get into our quarterback controversies. And I put them in quotations because one of them that we're going to be talking about tonight, I flat out do not think is a quarterback competition. I don't even think a controversy is, way, way past the limits of what I would call it. And it's definitely not a competition, in my opinion, even though that's what they're going to label it as. And, of course, I'm talking about Georgia. But let's open up with Alabama. Alabama's 3 quarterbacks that will probably be, in contention this spring. Mac Jones, obviously, the incumbent. Talua, man, your brother's name was much, much easier. It took me, about an hour and a half to repeat Tagovailoa over and over and over and over again before I got Tagovailoa and not have to stumble over it. But I'm going to have to hear that first name a couple hundred times before I got that one. So Tua's brothers, what we're going to call him from now, he's on roster. And then, of course, the All-American incoming Bryce Young, SI All-Americans Offensive Player of the Year in the 2020 class. I think extremely highly of Bryce Young, and I'll tell you about it here in a little bit. Mac Jones obviously proved he could sling the football just a little bit, right? Goes out to Auburn, goes to Jordan-Hare Stadium, puts up 42 points, and loses to that Auburn football team. But granted, you guys got to remember, Mac Jones did throw 2 pick sixes. He is going to turn the football over. I would imagine he is going to make a few mistakes, but he still got weapons, right? They still Alabama. They still got offensive weapons out there in Tuscaloosa. So we'll see if he can hold on to his incumbent position. Now, as far as Tua's brother, don't know much about him. I know he's not as good as Tua, is from what I've been told, from my understanding. But what I do know about Bryce Young, that kid is about as impressive as I've ever seen a high school player at that Adidas All-American game. Been watching it, very true tradition is to sit down, make sure I watch the Under Armour All-American game, because any kid my age remembers that very first one they had in the Tampa Bay Rays Stadium, it feels like dozens of years ago at this point. You remember that very first one when Under Armour was kind of this new company that, nobody really wore. Everybody hung out with. They had those cool Protect This House commercials, but nobody really rocked with Under Armour. And then this Under Armour game came out, and they were all of a sudden having all of these, top players in the high school rankings, all these ESPN top 300 guys, because I used to read ESPN top 300. I'm sorry, I used to be one of those guys, All-American rankings guy. But anyways, they had all these guys out there to play, and I thought it was the coolest freaking thing in the world. My annual tradition now is to sit down, has been for the last, decade and a half, however long these games have been going on, is to sit down, watch the Under Armour All-American game. Used to be before the new year. Now it's pushed back after. Shout out to those guys. I appreciate that. Let me get my full bowl season on before I come mess with the high school ranks. Anyways, they moved it past Christmas. Now you sit down January 1st. You watched the Under Armour All-American game. Somewhere shortly thereafter, you watched the Adidas All-American game. All great, all fine and dandy. Bryce Young, most impressive young quarterback I think I've ever seen at an All-American game. And here's why. It's a lot of chaos going on in those things, right? You don't know what's going on in front of you. You have no continuity with anybody on your staff or anybody on your roster, or, cadence is something they got to figure out. How the quarterback says down, set, hut. I know it sounds really, really simple, but guys, when things are flying by your face and crowds yelling and hollering, one little, subtle difference between how one guy says down, set, hut and how the next guy says down, set, hut will change. You see the little inflection differences. Those kind of things change how an offensive lineman comes off the ball, right? So all those things, I'm sorry, guys. I know my internet connection's been horrible. I just got to comment on it. We're going to get better internet connection. And for that, I apologize. So I had to address that real quick. I got to get some things bought. I really apologize. We're going to get to it. We're going to address it. So thank you, Brendan McMillan. We'll put your comment there on the screen just to show you some love. I appreciate you. We will get this fixed. I promise you. I got it on the Amazon. I got it on Amazon ordered right now, overnight shipped. We'll have it fixed hopefully before the end of the week. But back to what we were talking about here. I believe we were talking about Alabama quarterbacks. Bryce Young, one of the most impressive guys I've seen at the young level, at the All-American game level, because of what he could do just off platform, right? This is a guy who make all kind of throws. When I watch this guy play, I really do get Russell Wilson vibes. How else are you a 5-star quarterback at just 6'1", about, $180? And he's listed at 6'1". I'm sorry, Bryce. I know you're not watching this, but if you are, if anybody knows you is, I'm sorry. It's not really. I don't think you're 6'1". I think you're about 5'11", and that's okay. You're still a 5-star quarterback, and you still got a chance to start at Alabama this year. I think he's going to be the one. If anybody pushes Mac Jones for that starting position, I think it's going to be Bryce Young there at the quarterback position. Now, on to our next one, as I try to see what this feed's looking like over on the Twitter machine right quick. Our next quote-unquote quarterback controversy. It looks good on Twitter there, Brendan, so it must be a YouTube thing. Sorry. Check us out on Twitter at SEC Nightly, right there on the roll. It's rolling on the bottom. So the feed looks pretty good on Twitter. I don't know what it looks like on Facebook right now. Any of my Facebook viewers, if you don't mind, hit us in the comments right there. Sorry, podcast audience. That was really, really bad radio, really, really bad podcasting. So I apologize for that. But anyways, back to our topic. Georgia, not a quarterback competition. Here's why. Okay, let's get back to it. Who's on roster? Jamie Newman, Stetson Bennett, Dwan Mathis, Carson Beck, and about 3 other preferred walk-ons or walk-ons at the position. Here's the deal. As much as Kirby Smart and his staff believes in an open competition at every position, as much as they believe that every spot is available and up for grabs every single practice, weights, conditioning session, game, every single time you put on the G, there is an opportunity to win or lose a job. As much as they preach that, and as much as that is mostly for the better part true, here's what I'm here to tell you. The last 2 off seasons, Kirby Smart has gone out, seen a void in his roster, especially offensively, exclusively offensively, and gone out and brought in 2 transfers per year. In 2019, it was Lawrence Cager and Eli Wolf. Needed a wide receiver, needed a tight end, went and filled the positions. In 2020, headed into this offseason, he needed a new quarterback because he was going to lose one to the draft. And he needed another tight end because he lost 2 of them to graduation in Eli Wolf and Charlie Warner. What did he do? He went out and filled them again, filled those same voids that he had just a year prior. So what I'm here to continue to hope to end transfers, to fill voids. I'm not saying he's going to have to promise playing time. What I'm saying is he's going to have to give every opportunity to those kids to play, okay? Every single opportunity. If that means staggering the reps, 60 to 40, whatever it is he has to do, he has absolutely got to go out of his way to try to give those guys the opportunity to play, especially at the quarterback position. Because I'm here to tell you, Kirby Smart is probably going to be around Georgia for quite some time. And this is not the last time he's going to need a stopgap quarterback. This is not the last time he's going to need a grad transfer to come into his program and expect to play. Okay, Jamie Newman had venues he could have explored. Many other options he could have explored. He chose the University of Georgia. I'm not saying, again, Kirby Smart doesn't do promises. He doesn't do hold me to my word. He doesn't do that because the college football ranks and the college football games are ever-changing landscape. They are ever-changing world, and you do not, as a head football coach, as a recruiter, as a football coach in general, you do not need to be held down to a yes or no answer. Am I getting playing time, coach? Am I going to start? I don't know. We'll see. Wink. I just winked for my podcast audience. You guys didn't see it. Wink. I don't know. We'll see. Okay. What I'm telling you is it may seem on the outside, and everything in the media and every bit of words come this spring are most likely going to be about how, Stetson Bennett's look great. Stetson Bennett knows the offense. Stetson Bennett's here. Carson Beck's impressed everybody. D'Wan Mathis is back healthy. All this. Hell, we'll probably write stories about Carson Beck looking great. We'll probably write stories about D'Wan Mathis looking great. We'll probably write stories about Stetson Bennett balling out in the spring game because that's exactly what he did last year. But I'm telling you, September 7th or 14th, whenever it is, September, when Georgia plays Virginia here in Atlanta, Jamie Newman is going to be the starting quarterback. And there ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's my humble opinion, and that's what I'm bringing it to you. All right, on to our last topic of the night. We're about 22-ish minutes into tonight's video, so if you guys have enjoyed it, hit that thumbs up. We got to ask for some support again. We got some new audience in here. Drop some comments wherever you're at. We appreciate that. Podcast, as always, 5 stars. Give us a rating and a review. How about that? Got that begging stuff down really, really quickly, down to about a 30-second clip. That's pretty impressive. Let's see if we can get a little quicker in the future shows. All right, on to the next topic. Let's talk about some of the biggest games coming up in the SEC next year. A couple of really, really good ones. Most notably, let's talk about the first one we just mentioned. Georgia, or the one we just mentioned previously, Georgia and Virginia in that Chick-fil-A kickoff game. Probably not going to be a good one. I don't know the quarterback situation there at Virginia. I know it's been solid the last couple of years. Let's go look it up right quick. This is great live radio. We call this Googling radio right here. Quarterback with dreads. Don't know if he's coming back. Bryce Perkins, let's see. Was his name? Was he a senior last year? I believe he was. Either way, probably going to have a different quarterback from both teams this year, so we'll see what it looks like. But I would venture to say Virginia, I don't exactly know if they're perennially set, if you can perennially walk them in for 9 or 10 wins or a top 25 program. We'll just have to see there. Bronco Mendenhall going to have to prove he can continue to win at that rate. The ACC is what the ACC is. We know it's Clemson dominant, right? We talk all the time, or at least Dabo certainly talks all the time about how they play nobody. By the way, a little side note here. I think Dabo Swinney talks more about how they don't play anybody than anybody else talks about how Clemson don't play nobody. On to what we were just talking about. Virginia. Don't think they're going to be able to hang for 4 quarters in that very first football game against Georgia. Everyone knows, man, if you play football, that first game, those first couple of games, kind of like a preseason. Really, I mean, college especially. You don't get an opportunity to get live bullets flying, up until about, a week prior to the game. All contact pretty much ceases. I mean, they'll go shells, what they call shells, which is just helmet and shoulder pads. They might thud up a little bit. They might pop a little bit. So your shoulders feel the grunt of the pain, but the rest of the compression, the rest of the car crash, if you will, you never feel that until that first snap of that football. Exactly know what that's going to feel like. And it's the last time you felt it since the spring game. Okay. Since the last time you really juiced up and went 100%. And those true freshmen that weren't there, they've never felt any of that. They don't know what college game speed looks like. They don't know what college game impact feels like. So it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. I think Georgia handles that learning curve, especially considering what they're going to be returning on the defensive end. Earlier in the football games, you've heard me talk about this on SEC Nightly before. Early in the football games, early in the season, just like we talked about with the XFL last night, defense is see ball, get ball. Okay, see ball or see offensive guy, hit offensive guy, offensive lineman, defensive lineman. If a defensive lineman knows if the guy's attacking me, I got to get in my run fit. If he's packing up, I'm in a pass set, right? I mean, it's quite literally that simple sometimes. Obviously, there's some complexities with blitz packages, coverages, all that good stuff. Quite frankly, at Georgia, they run more of a complex system than most high school or most college programs, especially in the back end with some of their secondaries, because Kirby Smart is a secondary guru. It's where you got to start, obviously a former DB himself. But really excited to see that matchup here in Atlanta, if for no other reason than it's not Murray State to open up, right? I know they played Vanderbilt at the beginning of the season last year and then took 2 cupcakes and then played Notre Dame. But it's good to kind of see, and Georgia's notorious for this, or at least they have been under Kirby Smart. They're going to go out and find whoever in the Power Five is willing to strap up and play the Georgia Bulldogs out of conference early in the year. They'll do it. Whether it's Notre Dame in 2017, Notre Dame in 2019, Virginia in 2020, got an Oklahoma game scheduled, got Ohio State game scheduled in freaking forever. Whenever, if my kid's probably going to be in high school, maybe he'll be a Georgia recruit at that point, or a Oklahoma recruit, or hopefully, wherever, Berry College recruit. Don't care. Anyways, another game we got coming up: Texas at LSU next week, I think, following the kickoff. Maybe they're both September 12th. Either way, we got a bunch of good football games the weekend of September 12th. We got that Texas and LSU rematch. This time they'll be playing in Baton Rouge, as we pronounce it. A rematch, obviously, of last year's solid football game in Austin. Though I will say this, I don't know if this one will be as, scoring filled as last year, not as much offense, if for no other reason than, like we talked about earlier, Joe Burrow, obviously off to the NFL. Sam Ehlinger will be back at Texas. But I think we can all kind of agree as a collective audience that Sam Ehlinger was a bit of, a letdown last year after we're back. They weren't exactly back. Tom Herman's still there, running that program. We'll see how much longer it lasts. I don't know. I know Charlie Strong didn't get that run at Texas. I know that for a fact. I know he didn't get the opportunity to go out there and, have multiple opportunities to embarrass yourself as the Texas head coach and survive this many seasons. But, that's a whole topic for another day. All right. Another football game, we got Alabama at Ole Miss, right? Kiffin versus Saban. First time since 2009, I believe. And Kiffin was wearing that gaudy orange that you Tennessee fans love. No offense, Tennessee fans. Just my mom always told me told me and my brother both. My brother was a really, really good baseball player, still is, and is now a high school baseball coach, but told us both, you're not allowed to go to Tennessee. You can go anywhere you want. Do not care. You are not allowed because that gaudy orange does not match my color palette. I don't know. I don't know what a color palette is. Maybe I think it's the complexion of her face and all that good stuff. Apparently that orange doesn't look good on her. But what I told her is, Mom, that orange don't look good on nobody. I think that we can all settle on that right there. Anyways, Kiff played Alabama tight in that one opportunity as a head coach. Hasn't really run up against Alabama in those years since. Obviously been at FAU and at Alabama as an offensive coordinator and as an offensive analyst and a helper. But we'll get to see it, man. What was that? I think it's going to be a good one. I think it's going to be entertaining football. I'm really, really juiced to watch John Rice Plumlee play in 2020. I was going to be excited for him to play no matter what, but now you got Lane Kiffin there, so I'm twice as excited. So how about that? Bama and LSU always got to be on this list. They'll be at LSU this year, so LSU getting a couple of really, big home football games, so that helps their schedule out a little bit. But again, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for LSU to get to 10 wins this year. 10 wins, I think if you walk out as Ed Orgeron following the hangover from a national championship, now they're already going to put a statue of that man outside the stadium in 75 years when he overdoses off of Monster energy drinks. They'll have a stadium up the very next day. But, we'll see. I think it's going to be a letdown year this year, basically is what I'm telling you. And that's okay. It is expected. And if they exceed expectations, more power to you, Ed Orgeron. Put a stamp on him. Legitimate, verified top 5 college coach. I think he's, creeping his way in there. Slowly but surely, actually quickly, very, very quickly. Hadn't been a head coach very, very long. And had some bad stints early, right? Ole Miss, that was a train wreck down there. And we'll see if he can turn it around, continue to turn things around there at LSU and championship respectfully. I don't know. Again, 10 wins, I think, is the ceiling. If you come in and tell me next year they won 11-1, they lost one game to Alabama, I would be floored. Or whatever it is. Especially if you told me they went undefeated, I would, tell you to slap me right there. So you guys got the ability to screen record. All right, last game we're going to talk about tonight, and it's well deserved to be talked about last tonight, and it is that Egg Bowl. I'm telling you right now, Ole Miss, Mississippi State is must-watch television for probably the first time in the history of the Egg Bowl, okay? Here's an idea. This is a great idea. And ESPN producers, whoever's got that football game, hell, it might be CBS afternoon 3:30 kick. I can already hear it. Give me that intro. We don't have the rights to it, but I wish we could play it. We don't have it. You guys know what I'm talking about. You can hear it in your own head right now. That Egg Bowl is going to be legit. Whatever television station it's on, here's your idea. I'm going to need a framed shot of both head coaches in the bottom of each corner, okay? All the time. Better yet, during the game, and even better, during commercials. Just give me a live feed of Mike Leach on the left. Whatever they're doing all game, I want them boxed in right there in the corner. And preferably put it in their TV contract, put it in their coaching contract that they've got a live tweet, just like the rest of us idiots in the media. They've got a live tweet at least 10 times per quarter. Let's call it 10 times per half, okay? Because you get about 5 commercial breaks, a couple of TV timeouts every once in a while, maybe a tunnel review or maybe a review, something to slow the game down. Anyway, in the contract, 2 camera, single shot in the corner, 10 live tweets a half, done. Most watched television game in the history of television. Guarantee it. Lock it down. Put it in the book. All right. Got to tease one thing before we leave for tonight because that is our show. Those of you watching, those of you listening right now, tonight after this broadcast, immediately I will record it, put it up for the podcast. So if you were in and out of the broadcast tonight, feel free to check us out on iTunes, wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, all that good stuff. Check us out there. We'll be available. But I do have to tease this. We will be doing a Kendall Milton NFL player comp. And since you guys waited around for this long tonight, I will go ahead and tease it for you. It is Le'Veon Bell. And I spoke to Chris Milton today and actually got confirmation that this is someone that Kendall actually models his game after. So it's something that I'm really proud of. I'm really excited to, finish to it. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, wherever you're at. Most of you guys, I believe, are watching us on Facebook. But if you hop over to YouTube, just type in Brooks Austin, figure it out. Run over to my Twitter page or whatever, figure it out there. I got to be better about telling you just figure it out. But I think I'm fairly searchable over there on YouTube. I'll get some keywords that you guys can type in to make sure I pop up so you can find my channel. But either way, find me over there. That breakdown will be up tomorrow morning. Actually, it'll probably be posted around midnight tonight, maybe 12:30, 1 o'clock, depending on how crazy I get on the NFL Game Pass and grinding the tape. If I get a little wild, I'm sorry. It's just the way I am about football. I get giddy, as my mom used to say. And this isn't even Coffee Brooks. It's about to be Coffee Brooks after this. But anyways, Kendall Milton versus Le'Veon Bell. I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to exactly break it down, play-by-play, jump cuts, patience, open field speed. 40s are almost damn near identical from what the updated 40 that only apparently I have in this recruiting industry that Chris Milton sent me today. So hope you guys enjoyed tonight's show, but I really hope you enjoy that video breakdown that we're going to be bringing to you tonight on the YouTube channel. So we will see you tomorrow. SEC Nightly. We do it nightly here, Monday through Friday, starting most likely at 9 p.m. unless there's some kind of catastrophe, like the dog needs to go out or the laundry's still running or, God forbid, a natural disaster like a bathroom break needs to be taken. Anyways, we do it nightly. Hit us up, follow us, do all that good stuff. We will see you next time. Hope you enjoyed it.